Hey guys, hope everything's going well. Alrighty, I wanted to touch base on inflation and potentially what could happen this decade. So, I remember over a decade ago, I was doing a podcast with Silver Futurist, and we're talking about how the last decade you wouldn't see that much inflation based on the government numbers. Now, I don't buy the government numbers. I always felt that the government cooks the numbers because of hedonics adjustments. Now, it doesn't matter what I think, it matters what Wall Street thinks, and I've learned that the hard way. And if you look at the 1940s, I believe that this decade is going to be like the 1940s, not like year after year, but just the trend. And this is stated by George Gammon, Rebel. He's at Rebel Capitalist on YouTube. Pretty good channel. And I wanted to look at the numbers of inflation in the 1940s and compare it to maybe today and what will probably happen, in my opinion. Now, some people are saying, hey, it's like the 1970s. No, I don't think it's like the 1970s. In the 1970s, the US came off the gold standard, right? Or is the fractional gold standard, whatever you want to call it. Nixon took us off of it. And then you saw this bout of inflation. And then you also had issues in the Middle East, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then eventually, Volcker raised rates too high and the economy couldn't handle it. And then the economy crashed, right? And then Reagan came. Now, where we are at right now, or in the 1940s, let's just start out. 1940, inflation was 1.44. In 2020, the inflation rate was probably a little over 1. I think it's like 1.23 from what I'm seeing. 1941, the inflation rate was 11.35. It jumped up like crazy, okay? And you have to remember you had World War II. You also had wage and price controls, which, in my opinion, led to the inflation. Okay. And 2021, yes, the US did have inflation, but inflation got out of hand this year. And what are the numbers? Annually, like what, a little over 8%? Part of the inflation is because of geopolitical reasons, because there's sanctions involved, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that is what it is. 1942, the inflation rate went down to 7.64. Okay, so from 11.35, it went to 7.64. And in 1943, from 7.64, it went to 2.96. 1944 went to 2.30. Okay? So as the World War II was coming to a close, you saw inflation, go back to normal, 2.25. And what do I see here? I do expect that the Russian-Ukrainian situation will come to an end. Not sure when, but I wouldn't be surprised within the next few years, right? It shouldn't be too long, but, I could be wrong. I mean, they don't go on forever. And you could see that, the 1941 inflation, 11.35% went to 2%. And where we're at today, we're at, 8%? And then what I'm looking at from the Elliott wave theory, guys. Now, I'm not an expert in Elliott wave. I do understand that they are good at technical analysis. That's what I'm sure of. Now, with all the waves, wave 5, wave 3, wave 4, that's something that you're going to have to ask those technicians. I just look at them because I'm more of a fundamental analyst type of guy. And they're looking at a blow-off top in equities 2023 to 2024. Okay? So right now the talk is inflation, but I believe it will be deflation which will coincide with also Martin Armstrong's economic confidence model. So you have that going on. And the reset. So that's why I'm fairly confident that we're most likely going to see a blow off top in the next few years. I do expect a rally, though, before that happens, and a sizable rally, and deflation, lowering of prices, okay? And then go back to the 1940s. 1946, the inflation rate jumped up to 18%. It's insane, right? 2% to 18%. 1947 went down to 10.23%, and then 1948, 1.27, 1949, negative 2.08%. So I've been talking about the reset, and we're probably going to see tough years, 2024, 2025, maybe part of 2026. But I do believe that the government is going to come in some way, shape, or form to pump up the market, be it the Federal Reserve, be it via stimulus plans, whatever they're going to do. They're going to have more government intervention, which will increase inflation. So I see that same pattern occurring. And then it'll die back down, right? 18% annual inflation went to 10%, and then eventually negative in 49. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to go down that route. It's going to be volatile in terms of inflation. Last decade, you had 2010, 2011, where you had the blow off top in inflation, and you really didn't see too much inflation based on the government numbers. Now, I don't buy the government numbers, but it doesn't matter if I buy the government numbers or not. That's what Wall Street looks at. And the numbers right now, Wall Street's looking at, right? 8% inflation. I believe it's much higher than that, but, it is what it is. So, like I said, inflation right now, then deflation, and the government's going to try to pump up the market, and then you're going to see more inflation. It's not going to be like 1, 2, or like 2, 3%. No, it's going to be substantial, and this is going to be a weird decade, in my opinion. All these crazy things going on. But ultimately, this stagflation will turn into a deflationary shock. And we're going to see probably in 2024 or 2025. And then the next decade, I believe, is going to be focusing on deflation and decrease in asset prices. Trends tend to repeat. And everything was calm in the 80s and 90s when we grew up. But, now we're in a time where there's balkanization, the debt has gone up like crazy, and this is not the America that we grew up in, right? In the 80s and 90s. This is just more chaotic, and you'll just see same thing happen in the economy. Not to mention the fact that baby boomers will be dying off, which will not help the economy out. So that's one thing to know. But anyways, guys, let me know what you think. Remember to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't. Comment down below, guys. Thank you. Bye.